spring evening in our ancestral home of the McMorty Hall. It is fantastic to see you all. As you're all no doubt well aware, this evening we debate quite the hot-button issue of this House would repeal the 8th. Of course, that references the 8th Amendment in the Republic of Ireland's Constitution. I very much look forward to seeing what our two sides have to offer in the way of enlightened discourse this evening. So, before that, we have just a few announcements to get through. First of all, and most importantly, of course, just 2 days ago, we had our annual general meeting to elect, and indeed, in one case, appoint the Council of the 170th session. I would very much like to briefly run through the successful candidates with you. So, in reverse order, to the position of Social Officer, and I would suggest, just for the sake of time, one big round of applause at the end. No need to do it for each position, as there are 9 to get through. So, for the position of Social Officer, we had Mr. Evan Doherty. Just give us a stand. No, don't do that. No! It takes too much time. We're dreadful. For the position of Training Officer, we have Mr. Russell Nairn. For the position of Technology Officer, we have Mr. Jake Kieran. For the position of Outreach Officer, we have Miss Chloe Ferguson. For the position of External Intermediate, we have Miss Tara Grace Connolly. For the position of Internal Intermediate, we have returning for a second year, Mr. Matthew Bryson. Treasurer, we have Mr. Shay Glasgow. For the position of Secretary, we have Mr. Matthew Bradley up there. For the position of the 170th Session President of the Society, we have Mr. Hugh Dallas. They officially take office on the 1st of June 2018. Until then, the 169th Council stays strong and resolute and will not yield runnings to them, even though a good half of them are on the 169th Council. Never mind that. Otherwise, we have our end-of-year formal, the Conversazione, a mere 5 days away by my count, on Tuesday the 20th. It is set to be our biggest ever, with a total number of 61 people registered to attend. Sign-ups remain open until midnight tonight. If anyone here is attending and has not yet paid, you can do so via cash to myself or to our treasurer. Mr. Donald gives a stand, gives a wave. You can pay out in cash. There you don't fall over, man. You can pay out of us in cash tonight, or if you prefer PayPal or a direct bank transfer to either of us is an option. If you'd like our details, please do speak to us.
Do you accept that coin?
No, we accept the record coin, which doesn't quite exist yet, but we're getting there.
No, we accept the record coin.
No, that was a humorous joke. Otherwise, yes, that remains open until midnight. Please do sign up if you're interested in coming. The location is, as ever, the splendid Ulster Reform Club. We have now, due to the numbers, had to book the largest and fanciest room, the old Billy room. So I do hope to see you all there. Tickets for members are £30 for the meat option, £25 for vegetarian, plus 5 to each for non-members. Otherwise, Mr. Secretary, so we have next week is our final debate for Easter. It is the duck hunt competition. It is for Speaker of the Year. The way that works is we don't announce the motion until 15 minutes beforehand. Now, typically that dissuades people from coming, because people come because they want to hear the particular motion being debated. But this is, as I said, our Speaker of the Year competition. So the oratory and the rhetoric and the speeches will be top class. So I urge you all to attend. And of course, seeing it as it is our Speaker of the Year competition, a fantastic motion has been kept for it. And so please do come along to that. It will be in the center, our usual place. We're going to need more chairs. Excellent. Otherwise, that is our penultimate debate of the academic year. There's one more after that on the 19th of April. It is hopefully going to be in the Great Hall, and as this House believes, the Republic of Ireland has sold out Northern Ireland. So please do come along to that if you are free. Otherwise, I think the only announcement I have to make is just about who this debate is in conjunction with. Is that correct,
Yes.
Secretary, would you say? Actually, there is one thing that I needed to mention. So the microphone for the debate is over there. We record the audio of this debate, and as we do all of our debates. A word of warning I would offer to our fine, gentle people over here. If you whisper, if you say basically anything, it will pick you up, so that's bad. But also, if you speak even in a whisper or even slightly above, it will most likely drown out anyone who does not enunciate as loudly as I do. So please do bear that in mind. Also, a very good announcement. We have, thank you very much, Sir Rogers. At the AGM, we bestowed 3 honorary life memberships to those people who received such membership. Many glorious things are made available, but also some very nice gold and plastic cards are made for them specially. Now these members, some of them are here, some of them aren't. Their cards are not yet ready, but there are 2 honorary life members from previous years in this room who I would very much like the chance to bestow their cards upon. One of which is Mr. Rogers, so let's say right there. The other of which is Miss Emma Chadwick. So if you seriously doing that, Miss Chadwick, if you would like to come to the front, and I shall bestow upon you your honorary life membership card. Thank you very much. And Mr. Rogers, if you'd like to very quickly come and collect your card. Come quickly, sir, quickly. And then, over there. Right, okay. And then, there we go. I'll take another round of applause, please. For honor right there. Thank you very much. Yes, so, thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. So, we're getting underway very soon. Just 2 quick things more to say. So, as hopefully most of you are aware, this is a very special bit in that it is not just a joint debate, but it is a triple joint debate, I suppose. Something which I believe we have never had before. This debate is being held in conjunction not just with the letter, but also with some members of the fine Amnesty QUV Society. And also with our great friends from the Law Society as well. So yes. Old and noble societies, but nothing but the best of intentions, I'm sure. So I look very much forward to hearing what I have to say, and thank you very much for having this debate with us. It would also be remiss of me, due to the large number of new faces in the room, not to give a very brief rundown of the rules. So the way this works is quite simple. Each member who is speaking this evening will be giving a 7-minute speech. The first and last minute of that speech are protected, which means you cannot ask them questions. If you do so, I will tell you no. You will know when the first minute has ended and when the last one has begun whenever I ring the bell. Mr. Dunn, if you'd like to do so. So you have to ring the bell. The first time you hear that, you can begin to ask questions, and after 5 minutes when you hear it again, you cannot. When they exceed their final minute, I will ring 3 times to encourage them to stop, much like that. During the intervening 5 minutes, you may ask questions. To do so, you raise your hand, you say, on that point, sir, madam, general question. They may decline that, and they will do so by either ignoring you, or waving a hand and saying no, thank you, etc. If they decline, please take your seat. If you do not, I will shout you down. If they do accept, then please make your point brief, and they shall hopefully respond to you. When they are in the process of answering a question, you cannot ask them another question, let them answer, and once they have finished, allow them to please get through another sentence or so of their speech. If you do not, I will once again hopefully shut you down. The rules are also on the order paper in front of you. If anyone does not have one, then please ask someone nearby to pass you theirs. Otherwise, I believe that's all the announcements. Council, is there anything you'd like me to say? No, just a reminder to those attending the conference their reception begins at 5:30, Mr. Social Officer? Yes, in the Senate room. Properly kicks off at 6. And then we shall be making our way to the Ulster Reform Club by taxi at about 10 to 7. And we will remain there for about 3 hours. This information is all on the event page. Please do click go in if you haven't already. Otherwise, it is my great pleasure to invite a reading of the minutes from last week's debate. The motion was this House would be in Slytherin. It was the 21st ordinary meeting, and to read them I invite our wonderful secretary, Mr. Peter Dunn!
Good evening, one and all. The 21st ordinary meeting of the Literary and Scientific Society was co-hosted with the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Society and took place on the 8th of March 2018 and was attended by 43 members. Private members' visits were conducted by our guest chair, Honorary Life Member and President Emeritus, Ms. Tara Poryaka. After an amount of Calvin slapping from our guest chair, it was quite simply astounding, even for me. Private members' business finally was begun. After much persuasion, our guest chair read the piece of business emailed in by Honorary Life Member Mr. Finbar Rogers. As always, it was far too long and a little bit pointless, but the main point of it was that the Literatic Old Boys Club, being Finn, Dr. Goss, and Jonathan Finley, had signed a letter expressing sympathies that the society had to go to Coleraine. And look at that, lads. Mr. Russell then treated the house to a story, recounting the adventure of Coleraine Place, in which the house was amused greatly with the President trying to get on a train, then failing, then trying to get off a train, and failing, then failing to get off the train. Mr. Morgan Hitton then put a motion of condolence to the House. Miss Sasha Conlon, who spoke at the Law Society debate, had her father pass away that day. This was subsequently unanimously passed by the House. After another discussion / argument whether it was only the President who could be asked questions during President's questions, apparently Tara said it was any of Council that could be asked a question. The President, of course, disagreed. Mr. James Beckett, solidifying his place in the society by producing a fantastic in-joke, asked the guest chair which Kardashian does the current President remind the most of, and she said Rob, as is unliked by pretty much everyone. I told you she was harsh, like. Mr. Matthew Sullivan asked the President if he could pick any pure-blooded family, which would he be? The President struggled to answer, as he often does, but finally said Weasley after it was suggested by his email copy of the office. Mr. Sullivan then asked, which are greater influence on the youth of today, Potter or the Kardashians? I don't think our President has really ever been a youth of today. Or is just speaking the, gown-wearing ponce that he is now. But he said Potter, so I said the Kardashians. A vote was then taken on prior opinion on the motion that this House would rather be considering, which was 14 in favour, 15 against, and 5 abstentions. Our first snaky snake to speak was Mr. Matthew Sullivan, speaking for the proposition. In his speech, it sounded something like it had come from the mega right-wing, bordering on fascist person. So it's between Farage and Trump was basically. He warned about the dangers of impurity and interbreeding, and somehow got the idea that goblins were going to rise up, and thus we should prevent this goblin uprising. It was then that the House knew, if it didn't before, this was going to be an interesting Opening to the opposition was Maiden Speaker and President of the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Society, Miss Marina McQuillan. Spotting a Ravenclaw top, showing that Ravenclaw were actually quite naughty. Citing Cho Chang, threatening Harry's heart, of one of the examples. All houses are important, she maintains, even though the books only focus on 2. In a serious sense, so to speak, she cited Slytherin had deeply held prejudice against magical creatures, and thus advocated equality and all that kind of good stuff. Continuing the argument for the proposition was Mr. James Beckett. Descending the debate further into chaos, he argued the idea that we live in a fictional society was laughable. So we were all in this Harry Potter world, just to give you a bit of an idea. He then berated the standard of education at Hogwarts, reminding the House that they've not had a defence against the dark arts teacher in quite some time now. The wizarding community thus was at a real threat of just being rubbish, he maintained, and Slytherin needed to up its game and all that crap. He also repeatedly said that Hufflepuff didn't exist. Maiden Speaker and Miss Tara Grace Conley took the arrogance of the previous 2 speakers down a few notches. She compared the Slytherins to those irritating Oxford people. I do fear that surrounded by Oxford wannabes and pretentious boys in gowns, and that comparison to Slytherin came a little bit too close to home. But well, as a girl from the Falls, she said she wasn't feeling the whole "you're a mudbug" thing, and concluded that most of Slytherin made terrible career decisions. Closing Slytherin was Mr. Gregory Wintherson. Well, he basically could have been speaking about Oxbridge. It didn't matter that Slytherin were elitist and classist, because it was all for a good reason. They were the cream of the crop, the Camerons and Johnsons of the wizarding world, if you will. He then listed some totally cool stuff that Daddy helped happen apparently, like renovating the Chamber of Secrets into a massive bathtub. You were Slytherin for life, he maintains. With the best alumni programme, they even have matching tattoos. Well done. He quipped his conclusion, your haters is your enemies. Rounding off proceedings with Miss Emma Protocol speaking for the opposition. All her life she just knew she'd be in the Ravenville. Then cruelly with the cotton mob Briss, she got sorted into slavery. And it was with this her life changed forever. She even did the text 3 times, and she couldn't believe that she wasn't a snake. She said she's tired of all those crude jokes that make about Slytherins or Gryffindors and other various places. Pronouncing them as disgusting and lots of other bad things, she pleaded people to embrace who they were, unless, of course, you were a deadly Slytherin. Questions were then heard from Miss Christine Fleming, Mr. Jack Patton, Mr. Ted Pine, Mr. Matthew Bradley, Mr. Alcon McSparren and Mr. Ryan Rockney. A vote was then taken on speakability, which read 9 for the proposition, 13 for the opposition, and 7 abstentions. May I take
Nay.
Gregory Winfisson.
No, may I remind you that Mr. Russell Nairn was not in attendance at that debate. So every reference to Mr. Russell Nairn is replaced with Mr. Gregory Winfisson, so thank you very much. There were 2 at least, I count. Otherwise, Mr. Minutes is red. Aye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I will now open the floor to a hopefully rather brief round of private members' business. I believe there was an item sent in. Mr. Nairn, would you still like to deliver this?
Yes, it is still.
Sorry. So, yes, I just have one very brief piece of private members' business that was emailed in. It is, yes, quite serious. So, I shall read it verbatim, if you don't mind. So, simply sent in by Mr. Mr. Training Officer-elect, Mr. Richard Nairn. The piece of private members' business reads, I find myself in the rather unenviable position of having to send in a serious piece of private members' business. I woke this morning to the news that my mother was gravely ill in hospital with a condition that has nearly killed her before. Therefore, I would like to extend the motion to the House that this House would extend its best wishes to the mother of Mr. Russell Nairn for his speedy recovery. Regards, Russell Nairn. So the motion is this House would extend its best wishes to the mother of Mr. Russell Nairn for his speedy recovery. I assume that we do not really require. Yes, we do not really require any discussion of the matter. A seconder there was heard from Mr. Morgan Hickman. All those in favour then, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Abstaining, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. The House does indeed extend best wishes to the mother of Mr. Russell Nairn. Yes. Otherwise, are there any other items of private members' business? I shall begin with none other than Mr. President-elect, Mr. Hugh Dalton.
So, the private member's business that I'm bringing tonight comes straight down south from Cork. Now, this comes from news that's happened from the University College Cork Philosophical Society. That's the debating society at Cork. They've come into a bit of controversy in the last couple of days because next Tuesday they themselves are hosting what is a panel discussion on repealing the 8th. Now, where the controversy comes in is that for the event they're having a panel of a certain number of speakers. And if I've got the number correctly, they have brought in 5 speakers, or perhaps 4 speakers, to speak for the pro-choice side, and to get 2 speakers in to speak for the pro-life side. This has invoked a lot of ire from certain people down Cork, saying that this is not representative properly of the debate, that it's not 50-50 and both sides aren't going to get an equal share time, which they've defended, saying that they need greater representation because they're fighting the status quo and it better represents the opinions of people in University College Cork. So what I'd like to ask everyone here is if they think it's fair that they're able to bring in this disproportionate number of speakers for the reasons they've given, and if not, why.
Thank you very much, Mr. President-elect. I will take the first point from Mr. Glasgow. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Firstly, I'd just like to know what format of university debating it is that they're using when they have 5 for 4 speakers on one side and 2 on the other.
It's not a debate exactly, it's more it's a panel.
I think it's still utterly disproportionate and just silly to do such a thing. That whole argument, we're on the back foot so we need more speakers, this is just silly. And I think it betrays a lack of confidence in their own position.
Indeed, thank you very much. There's something I need to raise once this is over, please don't let me forget. Mr. Colin Neal, parents or thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've actually been in an IV down in Cork and I've seen the way that these people behave with the doesn't surprise me, and I think what is really dangerous is that in ways maybe misleadingly so, society does look up to what intellectuals and universities think, and whenever we bias these panels such as we do, it actually is a representative of the whole of Ireland, which looks up to these people to have good unbiased representation. I think it's a shame, and it's also a ground game around whenever big places like this keep it true.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nell. Are there any other points? Mr. Doherty, Social Officer Ella.
I've also been to the IB in Cork, which is a weird thing that social officers must have to do then. Having done that in this current session, I have to say that I believe the debating society at Cork is in a bit of a shambles, and I think that this panel shows how low they've gone. And I believe that any debate which is not 50-50 is wrong, unless they did one at some point in the next session, which was everyone in the society against the president, because maybe then we can finally beat next session. Maybe then we can finally beat him, and we can only give him 5 seconds to prepare for him.
Yes, that sounds about fair, actually. Mr. Hickman.
I think it's a relevant consideration here. We're talking about and I think a fair point is made, and I think it is something worth consideration, is that when arguing against the status quo, there is a certain amount of cultural inertia. However, these forums, these panel discussions, are not simply a method of representing general public opinion. It's a manner of informing people on different points of view of the debate. If we are willing to go along the line of a representative, proportionate panel discussion, then inevitably what will be created, if you're arguing against the minority view, whatever that may be, and I'm not simply applying it to the abortion issue, I think that this is something that has to be considered across the board as setting a precedent, then what you're arguing is that in fact a minority will be underrepresented even if they are working against a status quo, and vice versa, depending on the issue. And ultimately what that will lead to is an inevitable echo chamber in those circumstances.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hickman. Dr. Miller.
I genuinely think it depends on the quality of the two. I think if the two are better than the fight, it doesn't really matter.
Great point. Mr. Nairn.
So, despite being a fan of the pro-choice movement, I think the circumstance here is that they are not setting up this discussion for the purpose of discussion. Cork is, from the looks of it, setting up the discussion to be more a drawn-out crucifixion of one particular side of the argument, so that they can then masturbate over the superiority of their argument at length, while destroying these two poor people they've invited in under the pretense of offering them a fair panel. I think it's an utterly ridiculous scenario.
Thank you very much. Final point then, Mr. Pan.
Probably as the Cork person really Someone who's actually had a lot of involvement with the Philosophical Society down there. They do a lot of really good work with secondary schools and organising debates. In this instance, they are wrong, but let's just not stand it in that way. They do a lot of really good work.
Can I make a small point on that?
Sure.
Last that, well, their auditor's coming down first. Is that the auditor or president of UCC Philosoph is coming down next weekend to be our CA for maidens, and their competitions officer is also doing our equity for the competition. So I'll reiterate Ted's point that again, I believe the people at the UCC Philosoph are wonderful people and organise a lot of great events. I just wanted to be curious about the circumstance around this one event, but not to slander the society at all, because I think they're brilliant, and I just wanted to raise a point about this one particular thing.
Of course. I will now move on to another item, but just before that, a quick note. It is fairly commonplace these days for people to play practical jokes on me in the form of stealing my things. I have noticed that there was meant to be a Tesco bag filled with plastic cups. It is gone missing, not a big deal. The problem is though, that bag, I've just recalled, also contains another bag filled with a nice, new, shiny metal and enamel lapel pins. So if someone has played a hilarious practical joke on me by taking that because they're in there, please do return it, as I will not be able to rest easy until I find it, and also I'm gasping for a glass of water. So if no one has it, then please, if people could just pass them out of the room for a Tesco bag, much like the one in front of your secretary, I very much would like to find it. Otherwise, are there any other items for private members' business? Current and elect. Mr. Sullivan. Yes, indeed.
So, here's another pretty juicy background business. A few days ago, a man named Sergei Skripal in the city of Salisbury in England was attacked with a nerve agent. He was a former Russian spy, and the general consensus is essentially Russia has attempted and thankfully failed to assassinate somebody with a nerve agent on UK soil. As a result of this, 23 Russian diplomats in the country have been condemned as spies and expelled from the country, and various sanctions are being placed on Russia. So my question is this: how many times does Russia need to do things like this to other countries, and there'll be quite a lot of evidence that they've done this, before something's actually done that isn't just, well, we'll kick you out and then we'll bring you back in a couple of months?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. Just before we take points, I'd like to say, and I'm very glad you brought that up. Can I just say to the House, Russia unleashed a nerve agent on British soil. Let that sink in. That is utter insanity.
First use of chemical weapons offensively in Europe since the Second World War.
Utter insanity, in my opinion. I will take Mr. Capital.
So what problem we're really not seeing here is the fact that sanctions against Russia will obviously have an impact on us. If we're talking about proper hard-hitting ones against the oligarchs who put money into the city, or against the oligarchs who conveniently fund the Conservative Party. Let's just leave that comment in and we'll be bringing that bias whatsoever.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patton, Treasurer of the Legislature. Mr. Stewart.
I think we're forgetting that when Russia illegally annexed Crimea, the EU and the US and so on came down on them like a ton of bricks, and it wrecked the ruble as a result, leading to hyperinflation. And it did a pretty serious hit to their economy. So it's not just a case that we're going to pull the diplomats out and then put them back in a couple of months later. There have been instances in the recent past where we have been able to come back to Russia and deal basically effective damage, so to speak, in retaliation for them doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. Mr. McDonald.
I heard that one of the 23 diplomats was Jeremy Corbyn. No.
That sounded like political polemic.
I'd just like to say, if someone said, if we're going to kick out these 23 diplomats and bring them back in again in a couple of months, I think this is just the first stage of this crisis. I think this is going to go on for many, many months, maybe years.
Thank you very much, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Clark.
It occurs to me, and I just thought it was very nice, it's probably right. But, right, so if you wanted to not get caught at murdering somebody, you would just do a normal murder. You wouldn't use nerve agents. So it seems to me, and this has probably been talked about ad nauseam, I just don't follow things, but it seems to me they're trying to send a message, possibly to other former spies, so maybe there are more.
I think, honestly, that's an interesting point, but the real question that we're left with now is what on earth are you wearing? Good Is that shirt? Anyway, I'll take one or two final points. Mr. I'm sorry, Jack. What is your surname again?
Brooks.
Mr. Brooks.
Regarding the issues with Russia, you've got to think what reason did they poison this traitor that you could perceive to be from their country, and we must also consider the context of what their recent actions are, such as annexing the Crimea, and their involvement in Syria. It is very similar to what the Nazis did, testing the boundaries, and I believe that's what Putin is doing, and we should consider why they poisoned this person.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks. Last 2 points then, and we'll move on. I'll go with Mr. Glasgow first.
I think this debate would all be very well and good if we could actually do something about it, but let's not forget that last month Putin publicly announced that Russia are now in control, and the intelligence community believes him, by the way, of a nuclear warhead that can strike anywhere on Earth from Russia and cannot be intercepted by the missile systems we currently have in place. So moving against Russia to any significant degree would be the same as shooting ourselves in the face.
With a nuclear weapon?
Oh yeah, we all die in a nuclear apocalypse.
A cheery thought, thank you very much. And finally, current thoughts here, Mr. Connery.
Thank you again, Mr. President. I think, again, we all need to be very wary of where we're going with this. Ever too often, MPs get embroiled in hysteria over scandals. A scandal which still has very little evidence to support actual Kremlin involvement. There is pointings to secret involvement, however, due to the way the Soviet Union broke up in the 90s, there is immense amounts of private, secret, top secret details that are with people that there shouldn't be, and therefore the Kremlin really can't control a lot of different things and different threats. Again, I'm not a big Corbyn in many ways, but he's usually right on a lot of things regarding foreign policy. And again, here we are, MPs in Westminster, looking to sanction, looking to portray jingoistic attitudes with the West, and to basically start another arms race with evidence that still has people going about this.
Thanks, Graham. If you can keep it brief, Dr. Miller.
For once, I think I agree with content. I actually think this is just Putin testing the UK and seeing how our alliances are in the Brexit negotiation. I think that's why he's doing it, is just to see where we sit with our European and American allies. He wants to know what we're going to do, and we're actually showing him our card.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. I will now move on to a brief round of President's questions. Are there any questions for me? Mr. Doherty, Social Officer.
So given how we are in the beautiful McMorley Hall, I have a very embarrassing President's question.
The best, in my experience.
So, Mr. President, although he is not a member, would you give an honorary shame resign and an honorary fine to be collected at the Conversazione on Tuesday towards Mr. Peter Doherty, my late father, not late father, who I spoke to earlier today and may have sadly mentioned the name of, may I call him President Emeritus?
Certainly.
President Emeritus Eamon McCann, President of the 100 and something session. 50 something? 40 something?
No, it'll be 100 or so.
No, it doesn't matter.
We'll figure it out.
Of course, we don't count every candidates even when we weren't there.
Yes. Briefly, Mr. Doherty.
113th, I believe.
Something like that.
Let's go with that. Who, as members would know, stole a lot of wine from the Botanic Inn, and was part of the reason why the society eventually had to collapse in 1964. My father admitted to having met President Emeritus Eamon McCann and has called him a very nice person. I consider this a shameful act upon the society, a shameful act upon myself as a prospective council member, and I would like you to present that man with an honorary shame resign and an honorary fine to be collected on Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doherty. Yes, for those of you who don't know, the Society was founded in 1850. It went from strength to strength for about 110 years until, due to a combination of factors, including the beginning of the Troubles and the motions to send into sectarian mudslinging contests, but also Eamon McCann, former president, stealing a lot of alcohol from a bot and giving it to the members, and then the president after him stripping down to the waist and challenging someone to a fist fight in the street. The society was disbanded forcefully by the union and the university, and we were only refounded again in 2011. Yes, indeed, Mr. McCann led to the downfall of this once proud. Pardon, sorry?
Not quite. No, McCann was founded in 27 because Plymouth was disbanded in 68.
McCann was
over 40. And McCann was 70.
Look, the point is, Mr. McCann is a rotten scoundrel who doesn't acknowledge our existence anymore and won't talk to us. So I will indeed honorary fine your father and honorarily say shame resign to your father for that, which came to that.
I mean, he talked to me when I was around.
You never quite, Mr. Secretary. I've been very clear about that. So yes, are there any rounds of questions? Mr. Nairn.
Mr. President.
Hello.
Of all the Matthew Sullivans in this society, which Matthew Sullivan do you feel would be most likely to chew on the end of what he did not realise was a still lit cigar?
I wish I could offer a hero's answer, but I know this man honorary member too well to think that it was anyone other than him. Good job, sir. Good job.
Oh, you urged me.
So, Mr. Chairman. Any further questions?
Mr. President, if you could beat any amendment to the Irish Constitution, which would it be?
I cannot take a stance in this, so I, with my absolute lack of knowledge of the Irish Constitution, would say that I would be repealing the Fourth Amendment? It's going to be something like enshrining civil rights or something like that. Are there any other questions? Mr. McDonald?
So, Kim Kardashian described her perfect date to be staying at home, making a big picnic in bed, eating Watsons and cookies while watching cable TV. If you were to take any Kardashian on a date, who would you bring and what would you do?
I would have to take, as the House decreed, or maybe it was the guest chair last week decreed, that I apparently most like one Rob Kardashian. I would have to take this undoubtedly witty, charming, incredibly good-looking fellow and I would get. I would woo him, seduce him, but leave him wanting more. I would give him a simple kiss upon the hand and leave him on his doorstep of no doubt a most luxurious mansion, and it would be really quite splendid. Are there any other items of
The Fourth Amendment was.
Well, yes, what was the Fourth Amendment?
The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland reduced the minimum voting age in elections in the Republic of Ireland from 21 to 18.
These youths don't need a vote. Be gone with that, be gone, I say. The final President's question from, I'll take two more, because I'm very curious to see what Mr. Rogers has to say. But, Jack, would you like to go? Mr. Brooks.
Simply, just Clinton or Trump.
I couldn't possibly reveal my political affiliation to the House, so I will have to refrain from answering. I'm sorry, good sir, but the President is typically very neutral in these matters, so that will have to be my very disappointing answer for sure.
Politicians answer, well answered.
Thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Rogers, would you like to make your question?
Continuing on Mr. McDonald's point, I believe polyamorous relationships are quite fashionable nowadays. Surely the most ideal state involving the Kardashians would involve all of them. All 47 and a quarter. Take them all out to the cliffs of Moher, and then all of you then sign a suicide pact and jump off the edge. And you will then be immortalised in history as the man who rid the world of the greatest evil of our time.
I have to wholeheartedly agree that sounds like a fine course of action, Mr. Rogers.
Point of order.
Point of order.
You can't say that because Kanye West is going to run for president. That was a political opinion right there.
That is quite right. I retract my previous statement. I apologise.
Point of order on that.
Oh, fair enough.
I no longer recognise the office of the President of the United States.
That also seems fair enough, but alas, I feel that I must still recognise it. So I think, is it really good?
It's really short.
Go. You need a cup? Yes, certainly. I'll get you a cup in a moment. So, now we'll get to the President's questions. One final item before we move on to the bit. A vote on prior opinion. So, you do not require your membership cards for this particular vote as it is non-binding. I would remind you the motion is this House would repeal the 8th. All those in favour at this moment in time of doing so and supporting the motion, please raise your hand and say...
We need our cards.
No, this one. That's right. All those in favour of supporting this motion, please raise your hands and say aye! Aye. Keep them up so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, Thank you very much. All those in this garden of time would like to oppose the motion, please raise your hand and say yay! Keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 seconds. And all those who have no particular opinion, yes, there are cups, we'll get them in just a moment. All those who would like to express no opinion on the motion whatsoever, or who have no opinion on the motion whatsoever, Please raise your hand and say Met. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mr. Secretary.
5.
Mr. Secretary. I don't know what you're saying, Mr. McDonald.
No,
Mr. Secretary, could you please read back the vote?
That's it, and that was 48 in favour, 15 against.
So there we have it. At this moment in time, the House feels overwhelmingly in favour of supporting the motion. So there we go. So I shall now begin the motion and the evening proper. Our first speaker for this proposition is indeed a male speaker. So if we could all give a very warm welcome to begin the motion this evening to Miss Sarah Sutter.
Okay. I'm here today because the pro-choice movement is extremely central to my beliefs. I want my voice to be heard on this very serious and current topic. Now let me be very clear. This may be just another Thursday night literacy debate, but this is not an issue up for debate. This is a human rights issue. A woman's right to her own body is not for me, you, or anyone else to decide. I'd also like to highlight before I begin that my speech will use the word women. This motion does not just impact women. A range of people can get pregnant, trans men, non-binary people, etc. It is important that we keep this in mind, for if our feminism and activism is not intersectional, it is nothing. Before we continue, we must make it very clear what the amendment actually is in order to properly define this motion. The amendment states that the state acknowledges the right to life of the unborn and with due regard to the equal life of the mother, guarantees its laws to respect and as far as practicable by its laws to defend and vindicate that right. This archaic law, implemented in 1983, 35 years ago, is not just fair or safe. It equates the mother's right to that of the fetus. Women are only entitled to abortion if their life is directly at risk, and even then it's not always the case. As we've seen with the Sabina Halapanova case, which Megan will go into more detail about. The means that women are unable to claim the rights to their own bodies, and we must repeal it if we want to see equality and fundamental human rights in our country. We have the second most restrictive abortion laws in the European Union, next to Malta, where it is illegal in all regards. We do not want an extension of the 1967 Act. We need full decriminalisation. This is not a morality debate where we go back and forth and where life begins. This is about how my sisters across this country are being let down every single day and denied the ability to choose. It is important for us to note that legal in Ireland or not, abortions are still happening, be it the 12 women who fly off this island every day for basic health care which we are not providing for them, or the heartbreaking cases of women undergoing illegal and dangerous terminations. Let me tell you the story of 19-year-old Emily, a student just like any of us. She was studying for her assignments, working a part-time job for a minimum wage. She made the choice that it was not feasible for her to continue the pregnancy. However, under the discriminatory legislation we have, her right to choose was taken from her. She contacted an NGO in the Netherlands, paid more than €90 for the pills, and risked 14 years of her life in prison because the 8th Amendment does not value women as anything more than incubators. She took the pills in her home in Dublin and experienced excruciating pain and bleeding for 5 hours. She was sweating, vomiting, and experienced the bleeding for a further 2 weeks. This horrific experience could have been prevented if we could just provide the key thing we are asking for: free, safe, legal abortions. Emily isn't the only one. In the past 7 years, 1,500 Irish women seeking abortions have contacted these Dutch clinics, and it is unacceptable. I would also like to point out that in 2014, a study carried out in the US found that when carried out in the appropriate legal conditions, abortion is one of the safest medical practices in the world. There is an average of 0.7 deaths per 100,000 abortions. To put that into perspective, there were 1.7 deaths per dental surgery and 1.2 per taking part in a marathon.
On that point,
Yes.
I'm sure there are many people who would argue that every single abortion results in at least one death.
That is entirely your opinion, and I'm not going to argue with that, because that again, as I said, is not a debate what we're having about whether or not one life begins. That's not what we're talking about, because a fetus is again unable to survive outside of the womb before or after 22 weeks. Okay, thank you. To put that, I'm sorry. Up until the 1967 Act in the UK, illegal and unsafe abortions were the leading cause of maternal death. This proves that repealing the Act is more pro-life than not. Saving women's lives is crucial. However, not the only grounds for abortion, and this is why we must repeal this amendment. What is absolutely central to the pro-choice belief is that a woman is confident and able to make the decision for herself, and it is not our business to ask her why. Even in the UK, you need permission of 2 doctors to declare you eligible for termination. I trust women to make the correct choice for themselves. In 1992, the 13th and 14th Amendments made some progress where it is now legal for women to travel for terminations and for doctors to provide advice on how to do so. However, it is key to remember that doctors are still legally bound to issue information on parenting and adoption, even when the woman has committed to the decision to have an abortion. I do just want to point out that this expectation for women to travel is fundamentally classist and open. Depending on the time of year and your location in Ireland, this cost can range from 400 to €1,000. Not everyone who needs to travel can afford it, and on top of this, with the price of sexual health care in the south, the odds are stacked against us. According to the Irish Family Planning Association website, the contraceptive pill will cost you €60, an IUD $230, injected contraceptives $180, and the diaphragm $120. Think of all the forgotten people who are being left behind by the gate. Homeless women, refugees, people who are in no place to further a pregnancy but do not have the money or the standing to travel. In an embarrassing interview with the Irish Independent, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar laughed at the notion that abortion is a class issue. This man is the head of the Irish government and is still unable to see the gap between the rich and the poor in his own state. We are pleading for free, safe, legal abortions. I'm really sorry that my speech was much shorter than I anticipated. Thank you for listening. I urge you to vote in favour of this motion.
Very well done, Miss Sumner. Only by a minute. Yes, people tend to speak fast. Can I please get another round of applause for a fantastic maiden speech? And now, to open the case for the opposition, can we all please welcome Treasurer-elect Mr. Shane Glasgow.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we're talking about tonight is difficult and divisive. The issue at hand, abortion, and more specifically the legalisation of abortion in the Irish Republic, lends itself to discourse that touches the most abstract realms of philosophical thought and, as well, the most intimate condition of the human experience. It's a debate where everyone will have something to say, and rightfully so, and everyone deserves to be listened to. So when we deliberate on a thing like this, something that will touch all of us in our hearts and in our minds, it's important that we respect what everyone has to say. And we, the opposition, would like to open by saying that we value and respect the contribution of the proposition to this debate. I think this kind of respect has been lacking in the discourse down south recently, and both sides have a lot to answer for. That being said, a lot of what we have seen, or at least what I've seen, the nastiness, and some might say fake news and the ad hominem attacks, all of that gives us all the more reason and all the more drive to talk about this issue and have this debate here in the House, where we can conduct it openly and effectively and talk about the issues. We should talk about these kinds of things in a democracy. I just wanted to say that before we began.
Thank you.
So moving on. Stand before the House tonight to beg that you oppose the motion that this House would repeal the 8th. And I think it needs a little unpacking. So when we talk about the 8th, we're talking about the 8th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland, or Bunrock Naharan, which is the supreme law of the Irish Republic. So it means all of the laws in the Constitution essentially bind the Oireachtas, and the Oireachtas cannot make laws contrary to the Constitution. What the 8th Amendment specifically provides is that what it calls the unborn child has a right to life, and as the right to life almost always trumps all other considerations in domestic human rights law, the practical effect this provision has is to prohibit abortion in the Irish Republic in almost all cases, and indeed this was the intention when it was inserted. As recently, in fact, as 1983, we've heard from the proposition that this law is archaic. Number one, a law being old does not necessarily mean it's bad. The oldest law in force in the Republic of Ireland is called the Fairs Act, and it's from the early 1400s. And no one in the Law Commission is recommending that it should be repealed because it does valuable things. The only instance where abortion is not permitted is when another's right to life is at stake, so it has the practical effect of permitting abortions to save the mother's life. The Supreme Court in the Republic has held just this month that this provision is the only protection the unborn child has in the Supreme Law of Ireland. So when we talk about repealing the Eighth, we're talking about making it constitutionally possible for the Oireachtas to legislate for abortion and to legislate without the human rights constraint presently placed upon it in terms of the rights of the unborn child. Practically, the Taoiseach has said that he will take the recommendations of the Citizens' Assembly on board, recommendations that Jude will be arguing are flawed, but nevertheless it is recommended that abortion be permitted up to 12 weeks. So if the Eighth is repealed, it's almost certain that abortion will be legalised in the Republic up to 12 weeks. We, the opposition, will be looking at it from several angles tonight. Jude looking at the Citizens' Assembly perspective, Craig looking at the medical perspective, and Morgan will be giving a whip speech summarising the debate for us. So, what I will essentially be arguing tonight is this, that any line we draw, any line at all, on whether we can legally abort a fetus or not, is ultimately arbitrary, because the unborn child at any point in its development should have the same rights as any person alive. And so we would be arguing that any kind of abortion therefore cannot be sustained, and I'll also be presenting to the House some truly harrowing statistics from Britain and elsewhere. So my argument is really simple, no thank you, and it actually proceeds perfectly from the Irish version of the Constitution itself, which has primacy in the Republic. When the word unborn is translated from its Irish counterpart directly, it is rendered thusly: the living without birth. The living without birth. And that's how we must think of a fetus, and that's key. The living, like us, like any of us, without birth. They are not yet born, but this does not diminish their status as living, and it does not take away the rights that all living human beings are entitled to, most conspicuously and importantly, the right to life. So right from the moment of conception, if we don't interfere with this fetus, barring any act of God, then that fetus will develop into a human being, and it's as simple as that. If we don't interfere, then a fetus's natural trajectory is to become a human being. And that is why abortion offends this most fundamental right, the right to life, because wherever you draw that line, 2 weeks or 12 weeks or 24 weeks, it's always arbitrary. Because right from the moment of conception, that fetus will develop into a baby, and that baby will develop into a person. No matter when you interfere, we stop this development, we stop that person achieving personhood, so it is nothing less than an unlawful killing. It's no different than suffocating a child as it emerges from the womb, because there is no material difference in either circumstance, no thank you. Because what we've done is denied that person their right to development, whether that be 2 days after conception or 9 months afterwards. Potential is the word really. The potentiality of personhood ought to be treated in all material circumstances as the same as personhood, as understood in other parts of the law. And this outlook has been recognised by the European Court of Human Rights, where the court held that this would be a perfectly valid opinion for states to consider when talking about the conception of life. So that's the philosophical argument done, but we need to consider the practical too. So how many pregnancies in England and Wales does the House think has ended before term by abortion? I thought before I researched it, maybe 1 in 100, 1 in 50, 1 in 5. 20% of people. That's the effect that repeal has. 20% of human beings in any given line.
On that point, sir.
2 of us from this table, no thank you. About 10, 15 from this room. Those people would not exist because their right to life was denied when they were in the room.
On that point,
go ahead.
Equally, you can make similar claims about people using condoms and preventing people from existing in that sense.
No, you couldn't. Because, no. This is the potentiality. That potentiality does not exist at that stage. With conception, potentiality exists, because then when we interfere, that is a positive act from us that is stopping that development.
That's an arbitrary act.
No back and forth stuff. So if that's not murder, I don't know what it is. And those are just general figures. Does anyone know what the figures are for fetuses identified and not 100% accurately, my dad, as having Down syndrome? 90% in England and Wales, and in Iceland it's almost 100%. And the thought of that makes me sick to my core, because it's evil. It's nothing less than the systematic identification and extermination of a class of persons with no less dignity than any other class of persons. How can anyone make this judgment? That because you're different, because you'll need some extra help, you don't deserve to live? And that's the only data we have now. Who knows how it'll go in the future? Because ultimately, when it comes to that most fundamental and natural right, we don't get a choice. No one gets a choice in domestic law to end another person. Legalising abortion is not a step forward, it's a step back. Repealing the Act takes constitutional protections away from the most vulnerable, and if we do so, we have to imagine a room missing a fifth of our own number. I beg the House to oppose.
Next speaker for the proposition is Ms. Megan Gethin. Now, a right that we afford our maiden speakers, which indeed Ms. Gethin is that they can preemptively decline points of information. This may sound like disappointing for some, but I would remind you that there will be questions at the end that you can direct to both sides, and so please do respect the fact that this is a maiden speech. It is not easy to get up in front of a room of 76 people and to give a speech, so please do allow them to give a speech. So, without further ado, please welcome Ms. Gethin to give her
I am here tonight to provide you with my argument on why the 8th Amendment should be repealed in the Republic of Ireland. Throughout my speech, I intend to discuss abortion as a human rights issue, alluding to examples in the Irish state and what the 8th means for Irish women today. I agree with Shay's point that both views should be respected in this debate. Abortion has long been contested and again is resurfacing as a debate regarding the church, the state, the social order, morals and religion. However, abortion is none of these. Abortion is a medical term, and the right to access abortion is bound up in the right to access safe, legal health care. Not providing such service is a direct violation of human rights. In 2015, in a unifying tear-jerking moment, the Irish state passed the equal marriage referendum. All around, people celebrated as our wee country was heralded as progressive, as finally catching up with other Western countries. It looked like Ireland was on to becoming a place where we had envisioned for so long. And Ireland is no longer a church of state and of oppression and limitation. We look towards progression, acceptance and equality. In that moment, LGBT plus rights were celebrated. Women's rights then we look forward to. I am proud to say that I am Irish. I am proud to say I'm from a small town in the West Coast. I am proud to say I voted yes in the equal marriage referendum. But, Ireland, your current laws over a body that is rightfully mine humiliate me. I am embarrassed to tell visitors to this land that their nation state values the rights to their body more than my government values mine. The current abortion laws in this country are a humiliation to our state, our nation, and everything we supposedly stand for. This is no country for young women. We are still detained, criminalised, restrained by those with outdated moral beliefs and conservative views. Two of the world's largest human rights organisations, the UN and Amnesty International, have called out Ireland's current discriminatory and draconian abortion laws, and have repeatedly called for the 8th Amendment to be repealed. Human rights bodies recognise that the right to life, the right to health, the right to non-discrimination are all rights that pregnant women have, and that if the state takes away the right to decide, those rights could potentially be implicated. No human rights body has ever found a liberal abortion law to be in violation of international human rights law, and this is because human rights apply after birth, not before. Amnesty International's position on abortion, like their position on every other issue, is grounded in international human rights law and standards. Whoever you are,
on that point,
wherever you are, all decisions you should make about your body should be yours. Sexual and reproductive rights are human rights. They guarantee that everyone should be able to make their own decisions about their bodies, get accurate information about healthcare options, and access sexual and reproductive health services. Repealing the 8th Amendment will also break the massive stigma regarding abortion. A common theme in interviews conducted by Amnesty International was the silence in Ireland and Northern Ireland around it. Interviewees likened it to a wall, a conspiracy, or a stifling presence. Women disclosed how they rarely told anyone about their abortion, referring to the pervasive stigma and the fear of punishment of their reasons for not doing so. It is time to break this stigma. We, as a country, as a society, can do more for our women. This society that breeds fear, worry, panic and distress around a woman's own personal choice is not a society I'm proud to be a part of. The Savita Halpanagar case 5 years ago was a catalyst for many involved in the repeal debate, and it was a turning point for the Irish nation. Savita Halpanagar died, aged 31, at Galway University Hospital 1 week after she presented with back pain and was found to be miscarrying 17 weeks into pregnancy. She asked several times for her pregnancy to be terminated. Her request for termination were refused because there were people present.
No, sorry.
She contracted sepsis and died with multi-organ failure and septic shock. In this instance, as the Irish law stands, the Irish state had equated the life of a 31-year-old woman to that of a 17-week-old fetal heartbeat. She was merely treated as a vessel and not a human. All around Ireland, a chorus of never again was sung, in reaction to an unlawful preventable death. A wave of anger swept over the Irish nation. Candlelit vigils were held. It was a galvanising moment in Irish history. The choice to have a termination during pregnancy should be that of the mothers, not that of the state or of the church. What this case did was make people open their eyes to the true naked backwardness of the Irish state. Doctors told media that Ms. Halapanara would have survived had she been granted the termination that she had requested. This case catapulted Ireland's discriminatory laws into international frontage. Ireland murders Indian dentist, one headline in Savita's homeland Iran. This shames the Irish state. It dishonoured the Irish health system. It instigated a movement of dedicated women's rights activists. The Eighth Amendment as it stands is also socio-economically discriminating. The option to travel for abortion is not available to everyone, not to poor women or migrant women who do not have legal status to travel. The Eighth therefore discriminates. The Eighth not being repealed will not stop abortions. It will not stop 12 women a day flying to England. It will prevent safe abortions. It will prevent legal abortions. It will prevent pregnant people from accessing free, safe and legal health care that so many of our sisters around the world can access. As our Minister for Health, Simon Harris, has said, abortion is a reality in Ireland. If the purpose of the Eighth was to stop abortions in Ireland and to stop Irish women from accessing abortions, it did not achieve that. All it achieved was pain and suffering. The time is now for this country to provide abortion services for those who choose to access them, in a safe, legal environment free from judgment or shame. We, as Irish citizens, with respect for our fellow persons, can do more. We can call on authorities in this country to ensure access to lawful abortion in accordance with international human rights standards, to remove the threat of criminal sanctions from women who undergo abortion and healthcare professionals who provide termination advice and services. We need to do more for women in this country. The Eighth Amendment referendum is the first chance that people under the age of 53 have had for the first time a chance to vote on the issue of accessing free, safe and legal abortions. I urge you to vote to repeal. Abortion. This issue is not black and white. It is not your body and it is not your right. It is mine and it is my choice. I want to live in an Ireland where the rights over my body are not bound, enchained by that of church and that of state. A cart, a court, a kinna. My body, my rights and my choice.
Can I please get another round of applause for a fantastic men's speech? I forgot to point out that during any speeches where points are preemptively made, I won't ring the bell after the first because there's no need, but I will ring as we enter the last, just so people know we're in the last minute and we give the speaker some heads up about where they are in time. Otherwise, to continue the case of the opposition, can we please give a warm welcome to Mr. Jude Perry?
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe Ireland is a country that stands for certain values. We stand for civil liberty and we strive to protect our young people. And I believe that we as a country, in our short history, tend to honour old principles, such as respect. And I believe that it would be unjust for our principles to repeal the Eighth Amendment. In this debate, I'll discuss how the debate around the Eighth Amendment came about and the flaws of the Citizens' Assembly which recommended the 12-week repeal to the office. I will discuss why I believe abortion for 12 weeks is contradictory to our values and our morals, and I will also address some of the questions posed by the pro-choice side in this House. Now first I want to explain what the Citizens' Assembly is. It was a representative group of people taken by a polling company in Ireland and was sent out the task of deciding recommendations to your office about abortion. It was supposed to make an impartial recommendation based on evidence from both sides. However, It turned out to be a flawed procedure in which the members of the Assembly were misled on the issue of the 8th Amendment. And the choice of speakers and the evidence shown purposely skewed to support the pro-choice side. And I want to speak about one of the speakers that came to speak at Citizens' Assembly. Her name is Dr. Patricia Lord. She's the Medical Director of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, who conduct the most abortions in England and Wales. Now, the aim of this service is increasing its market share by influencing public policy towards abortion. And in 2016, they had a profit of £29 million. However, what Mr. Lord did not mention to the Citizens' Assembly quite accurately, quite conveniently, is that a report in 2015 said that 11 serious incidents occurred in the Liverpool clinic, which resulted in 11 women being rushed to hospital. Now, the way the Citizens' Assembly was formulated was not done correctly by the government, and Red Sea, the polling company, conducted an audit, and they found that 7 replacement members who were brought to the Citizens' Assembly were actually friends and family members of the interviewer. The government did not take legal advice in offering incentives to attract people of all different backgrounds and walks of life to the Assembly. Instead, they favoured to have it as a skewed procedure. Dr. Laura Self even said, abortion is an act of killing. Because the status of the fetus does not provide any legal protection, it's fine. I have never been more disappointed in the Irish government's decision to propose a referendum which would strip an unborn child of any constitutional right. I believe that all humans possess equal and inherent worth simply by virtue of their humanity. This worth is not an indication of mental ability, size or strength, and it is not up to me or anyone in this house to decide when that life should be taken. Without the right to life, all others are meaningless. And it is, today, the defining issue confronting Irish society. Respect afforded to human life, from our beginnings in the womb to our final resting place in the grave. I believe the pro-life message translates into a larger agenda that makes us as a modern society reflect. We all started life as an embryo, and as in my opinion, you can choose a lot of things in life, ladies and gentlemen, but you cannot choose to take another human life. So when are we going to decide to abort a child? Week 6, when their nose, mouth and teeth begin to develop? Week 7, when their hands and feet are formed? Week 10, when their organs and vital structures grow? Or maybe week 11, when their hands begin to open and close into fists?
On that point.
Or finally week 12, as this abortion is recommended, when the brain starts to grow at a phenomenal rate and their toes begin to curve. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not balls of tissue or clusters of cells, but developing human beings. Human beings that we don't know what to achieve. Now I want to ask some protracted questions to the House today. And I'm going to draw on the example of the US abortion in the United States. There's a debate in the US at the moment about the humane strategy, the humane way of animal injury. One of those is horse slaughter. There's a big debate around how we go about slaughtering animals, specifically horses, and what's the humane way to do it. And there's also the case of the protection of orca whales and the way that they are cared for. Except in the middle of this conversation, children are being aborted, and instruments are being put into women, destroying a child, but carefully protecting their organs as they are valuable to sell. Now there's an ultimate irony here. And we face as a nation the question that while we are worried about the humane way in which we treat animals, we are at the same time ripping apart a child in the womb. Now I have some questions that I want to address from the pro-choice side. They say if we do not legislate for abortion that women will die of unsafe abortions anyway. But that begs the question that if we legislate for sex trafficking, just to ensure that it is regulated, I don't think so. And as well as that, I believe it opens the door. At what point do we believe it is right to terminate a pregnancy? And that is a question that pro-choice people, not only here in the UK and the United States, fail to answer. At what point do you believe it is legally right to terminate pregnancy? And as Shay said, in the UK, 90% of babies are diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted, and 1 in 5 are aborted regardless. They are worrying statistics. And I also want to draw on the ruling by the Supreme Court, which said that there is no clear constitutional right to the unborn outside the 8th Amendment. That means that we are handing power over to the office and politicians and politicians and other business to introduce legislation with abortion. And I also want to address some points that Ms. Geckman made before I finish up. You mentioned Speak Halapanada. I find it quite shameful that the pro-choice side flaunt this Halapanada, the late Halapanada's name, not only here but in Dáil Éireann, every time this debate comes out. I believe we should give our family some peace. To allow one abortion is to allow any abortion. A child is a child, not a question of circumstance, but of principle. Why should a child of 11 weeks have no legal protection, while a child of 12 weeks has? The mother and child are not in competition. A child is not a foreign invader, but we can, as the pro-life side quite acutely puts it, love both. Thank you very much.
I just noted that we have a few more order papers left over, so I'll hand them up to the top here. And if anybody would like to get one, just pass it down. We'll see how you do. Now our next speaker is Mr. Andrew Graham, who has also frankly declined all points of permission. Again, please hear us about this. It is, again, as I said, quite tough to stand where this many people give your bed to speak. So, speaking of which, can we please welcome Ms. Graham to continue the discussion?
I'm here tonight to give a clear, informative and factual speech regarding the 8th Amendment and why it needs to be repealed. I'm not here to debate or to argue. I am here to provide my opinion in the hopes that it will influence you to vote for repeal. As someone who came to this university conflicted on the issue of abortion, I understand how it feels to be confused in the issue and the stigma that is so often associated with it. Growing up in a rural part of Donegal, there were many topics that were rarely discussed, particularly abortion and contraception. For instance, I received no sexual education classes during my time at secondary school. Coming to university, I became a more open-minded person, and I came to the understanding that just because I myself would not have an abortion does not mean that I have an influence or an opinion over those who do seek an abortion or have had one in the past, as this does not personally affect me or my life. In September of last year, it finally all came together for me. As the people of this country marched in Dublin to repeal, I listened to what they had to say. A friend from home recorded herself leading the crowd chanting, "My body, my choice," over and over again, until it clicked. Her body, her choice, her right, and her personal and private decision. The 8th Amendment to the Irish Constitution, otherwise known as Article 40.3.3, was passed by popular referendum in 1983. This meant the right to life of a woman became equal to that of a fetus. This meant that it was also illegal for a woman to travel to another country for an abortion. It was even against the law to tell a pregnant woman in Ireland where she could seek an abortion in another country. The 8th Amendment was introduced into the Constitution during a time when the Church and State were seen to be one. In a time where young women were sent to Magdalen laundries for falling pregnant outside of marriage, they were sent here to repent for their sins, with the last Magdalen laundry only closing in 1996. The year that the referendum passed, a woman named Sheila Hodgers was refused cancer treatment, even painkillers, because she was pregnant. Her repeated requests for an abortion went ignored. She went into premature labour, the baby died, and she died 2 days later. In December 1991, a 14-year-old girl was raped and impregnated by an older man. The young girl contemplated suicide, and her family agreed that they would travel to Britain for an abortion. The X case, as it became known, was the next right to leave the country for an abortion, as suicide was not deemed a risk to her life. The X miscarried shortly after this. It was not until December 1992 that women were allowed to travel for abortions outside of the state, as well as the right to obtain information regarding abortions. 1992. In 2007, a 17-year-old girl who became known as Miss D was under the care of the HSE, and she developed fetal abnormalities and informed the HSE social worker that she wished to end pregnancy. The social worker responded by saying that she was not allowed to travel for an abortion, and that the Guardian would restrain her with force if necessary. In 2007, a High Court judge ruled that she had every right to travel to the UK and strongly criticised the HSE's handling of the case. Miss D had a surgical abortion in the UK. In 2010, Michelle Hart fell pregnant while being treated for cancer. She was advised that as a result of her poor health that she should terminate pregnancy. However, Cork University Hospital deemed the threat to her life not immediate enough for a legal abortion. So she was forced to leave the country for an abortion despite her condition, and she was not able to receive cancer treatment during her pregnancy. She died the following year. The list is endless. The 8th Amendment kills. 47,000 pregnant women die globally every year from unsafe abortion. Abortion will always be in demand. It must be made safe. It must be made legal. As a university student soon to be graduating, I have many plans I hope to fulfill, just like every person in this room. But I am not a vessel, and I am not a means of reproduction. And if I were to get pregnant, this would cause my life to change in an incredibly drastic manner, and many of my hopes and desires would become less obtainable. If I were to get pregnant, however, the man who impregnated me has a choice. He has two options: stay or leave. I'm not inclined that every man thinks this way. I'm merely making a point. A man has the option to walk away from a pregnancy. If a man has a choice, why does a woman not? I am a feminist because I believe in equality. The 8th Amendment contradicts my rights as a woman, as a human, and as an equal member of the society. If you think that I'm wrong for believing in the repeal movement, let me ask you this. Why does human rights organisations such as the UN and Amnesty International condemn the 8th Amendment and support its removal? Why does our own Taoiseach Leo Varadkar and Minister for Health Simon Parr support the repealing of the 8th? The 8th Amendment puts the life of the unborn fetus before the life of the mother, regardless of rape, regardless of incest, regardless of fetal abnormalities. If you've decided that you have no opinion on the referendum and have decided that you won't vote, then you're choosing to stick with the status quo and therefore deciding to keep the 8th Amendment. There are only two options. Making abortion illegal does not stop it from occurring. Every day, at least 10 to 12 women will travel abroad to access healthcare that was denied to them in their own country. Those who cannot travel face a sentence of 14 years imprisonment for purchasing illegal abortion pills online. Our women are treated as criminals. They are forced to remain silent due to social stigma. The state export our women as a solution to avoid dealing with the situation themselves. 4,000 women a year travel abroad for abortion, mainly to Britain. Since 1980, 150,000 women have left Ireland to have an abortion abroad. If you vote to keep the 8th, this will not stop abortion from occurring. There is a demand for it, because the people who get abortions are not strangers. They are our sisters, our mothers, our aunties, our trans and non-binary friends. This is an issue that affects everyone. In the US, 92% of abortions happen before 13 weeks. 54% of women who access abortions are already parents. The 12-week recommendation made by the Oireachtas Committee is going by European norms, as it's launched in Bulgaria, Belgium, Denmark, Estonia, Portugal, Switzerland. The list is endless. Whether you agree with abortion or not, this will not stop abortion from occurring. Keeping the 8th just means abortion will be unsafe. The 8th Amendment does not just affect women, but trans men and non-binary people as well. Why do you trust me with a child, but not with a choice? Following this debate, we go to the pub and you'll enjoy your night. I cannot, because as long as we have the 8th Amendment, I live in fear. This isn't a debate for me. This is my life, it is my body, and it is my choice. Moraha Maharta. We all know what an abortion is. I urge you to be open-minded and realise that every person deals with pregnancy differently, and we all must do what is best for ourselves at that time. One day, I'll be a mother myself, but it will be by choice and not coercion. We won't wait. Repeal the 8th.
Speech. Can we please get another round of applause? Now, it is the case of the opposition, Dr. Craig Miller. Give him a hand!
Okay, so I've been tasked with the objective of trying to discuss this debate from a medical perspective. There's a couple of clear, flawed points from the proposition so far. I just want to clear them up, and I'm really sorry to do this. But if somebody is having a miscarriage, you cannot abort that. Okay? That's not an abortion. That is the treatment that is needed with a miscarriage. They're completely different things. Okay? And currently, miscarriage is allowed as treatment in Ireland. And that's a problem from the doctor who was not doing the treatment. It's not a problem with the law. So let's just clarify some of the stuff that's being said. That's the first thing I have to deal with.
I have to concede, and I will do this, and if this costs me the debate, then fine, but I have to concede that people who need cancer treatment get cancer treatment. And if this law categorically states that a woman cannot get cancer treatment, then the law needs to get repealed. I don't believe that's what the case is with this law. However, if it is, which it isn't, then they should be getting treatment for that. It should not be getting in the way of that law. So I need to talk to you from a medical or a biological point of view, a psychological point of view, and a social point of view. That's how the WHO classifies health, and I'm going to try and take all three on, so just bear with me as I go through it. Let's talk about the date to begin with of 12 weeks. Now, at 12 weeks, you're going to have had 1 week ago, you will have had your triple test. It's a test to basically decide whether or not a child may have a genetic abnormality. Those results, if done privately, may take a couple of days to come back. You then have a definitive test. That test takes 2 weeks for those results to come back. So you're at week 14 before you know whether or not there is a fatal fetal abnormality. The current proposal, based on that alone, is flawed, because you're trying to say we're going to have a cut-off of 12 weeks, but you're not going to know if you want one until week 14.
On that point.
Take it, yeah.
It's later for fetal abnormalities.
Pardon?
It's later than 12 weeks for fetal abnormalities.
What, do you know what the actual date is?
I think it's 22.
Is it 22 weeks? Okay, I was given incorrect information. Fine. The second point regarding a medical point of view is that who is going to actually carry out these procedures? Do you have anybody on the island of Ireland who is currently trained to carry out dilation and expulsion of a fetus? No. So what is going to happen whilst you're currently training your obs and gynae consultants to do the procedure? They're going to carry on going to England.
On that point.
No. They're going to carry on going to England. You don't have anybody that can do the procedure. So you're basically getting into Brexit drama round 2, okay, and you're basically putting forward a policy that doesn't actually work. You don't have anyone that can do it. Yes, no. So you can give them an abortion pill, that's fine, fair enough. That doesn't work 5 in 100 times. So what do you do with those other 5 that don't work over the next few years while we're training up enough people to do the procedure? I'll take the point out someone's got an actual example.
Yeah, but I mean, if we don't build it now, then this training will not occur and we will never be in a position where we have
actual medical training is that people can go abroad and carry out their training. Okay, we can currently do that. So what you're going to end up in a situation is we're going to make a law legal, we're then going to go and train for 3 years because it's now legal. But in those 3 years, people are still going to go, I want an abortion, sir, or ma'am, or doctor. That's what they're going to say. And what we're going to do, we're going to put them on a plane straight to England. It's a flawed policy. If you took this as a stepwise proposal, then fine. Then you could deal with this. But at the moment, as it stands, repealing the 8, it doesn't work from a medical point of view.
No, it's not fair.
Okay. I now just want to take this on from a psychological point of view. So we've had quotes from the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology already. And the Royal College have stated, and this is a quote from them, not from me, rates of psychiatric illness or self-harm are higher in women who have an abortion to those who don't. And that's from the work that was carried out in 1991 by a gentleman called Dag. No. This work has been compounded, and we can actually show that there's higher rates of depression among women who've had an abortion. 65% have reported this. That's by Ferguson in 2006. 14.6% are suicidal.
On that point, sorry.
No. This is... Second prop talk about the whole idea of denying that they've had an abortion. And correct me if I'm wrong when I say this. But at this current moment in time, and this has been quoted extensively in medical literature, the element of PTSD as a result of having an abortion is high. What people are doing is they're denying that they have one, even in a country where it is legal, such as the States or England. So we are having the denial even when it is legal. People are having PTSD as a result of it. The question is, and it's been proposed by proposition here, is abortion safe? Well, you've actually heard in first crop what happens when women have an abortion using the abortion pill. What was talked about by first crop going to Holland was actually what happens when you have an abortion. That's what happens. Okay, so they're trying to tell us it's a safe procedure, but then contradicting themselves by using what's happened as a way of saying, no, but this is what happens when you have an abortion. I can't understand their idea there. Maybe fourth crop can sum that one up. From a social point of view, third crop has categorically stated, and I wrote down her quote here, if I can find it, that she has not had any sexual education before university started. Let's take this on from a social point of view now. If you are trying to legalise abortion and people that are voting have not had any sexual education in it, surely there's a problem with that. You get into a situation where people rightly want to have an opinion and rightly want to have a choice, but without the actual educational backing for that decision to be taken place. I urge you, based on the fact this is medically flawed, there's psychological insult which we've not investigated, there's social problems where the actual basis hasn't even been constructed yet within Ireland, we cannot pass this motion. I urge you to vote against the motion.
Once again, our final speaker crop has to incredibly well points of impression, so you know what to do at this point. And now, can we please welcome our final speaker for the proposition, Ms. Amnesty!
President, Secretary, good people of the House, I'm just a tired, slightly hungover feminist, standing in a room full of people, asking them to vote for Repeal. My brilliant colleagues have eloquently outlined the myriad of reasons exactly why repealing the 8th Amendment is of absolute importance, not just for women, but for society as a whole. It's important, as Sarah says, to make sure that our feminism remains intersectional and to remember that a range of people can carry children, not simply cisgender women. In this summarising speech, I'm going to try and rebut a little bit of what the opposition has said, and I'm going to reiterate exactly why we, as a proposition, believe that abortion is an issue of human rights, autonomy, consent, and freedom. And I'm going to explain more about why we passionately believe that the repealing of the 8th Amendment and decriminalising abortion treatment is a crucial step towards creating a fair, just, and equal Ireland for all. So I'm going to start off just by saying that Ireland may stand for certain values, as Mr. Harry states, but currently, respect for women and their reproductive rights doesn't seem to be one of them. And I also want to rebut what Mr. Miller said as well. Surely it's better to train up doctors for the future and to repeal the 8th and make sure that women can get safe, legal abortions. We can sort out in the interim what happens with people who want to get abortions before the doctors are trained. It can totally happen. And women who keep silent as well will also suffer from depression and mental health issues. Legalising abortion can only provide more help and support for people that are going through that. As an English woman, I am lucky enough to be able to access free, safe and legal abortion provided by the NHS and other local services. In a quick Google search today, I actually discovered that in and around my home city of York, there are no less than 33 facilities in which I could access professional and confidential family planning treatment, information and help, much of this being free of charge. Moreover, though my city Catholic school did stick to the familiar script when it came to sex ed, I was at least lucky enough to be able to discuss topics like sex and contraception and abortions, unlike women in a similar situation in Ireland. It is just quite simply astounding that many of the strong, brilliant, and intelligent women sat around this table and in this room today did not have such an education and do not still have the same basic human rights as myself. Simply because, as Megan has stated, their government does not value their intrinsic rights of choice and bodily autonomy as much as my government values mine. The historic connections between Irish legislation and the Church only worsen this, as we said, turning what is a plain medical issue into something more moral and theological. Those seeking abortions are not only criminalised, but are morally victimised for daring to engage in what should be a basic human right. In our supposedly enlightened times, this is, frankly, ridiculous. The many names repeated by my colleagues throughout their speeches are a testament to the people that Ireland has failed because of this draconic and frankly disgusting attitude towards reproductive rights. Criminalising abortion and valuing the life of a fetus as much as a carrier, even in cases where pregnancy has posed a serious or fatal threat to life, has led to the preventable and heartbreaking deaths of women like Michelle Hart and Sheila Hodges, whose cases we've already discussed. Such loss is only compounded when the 470,000 people who die globally from unsafe or illegal abortions are counted, and many of these women and individuals will be Irish, like Emily, who we spoke about earlier, and the other 1,500 Irish women who have bought legal abortion pills from Dutch clinics in the past 10 years. Without access to legal abortion, thousands upon thousands of people are forced into extremely dangerous, criminal and life-threatening situations if they even wish to gain some form of bodily authority. To echo Ronnie's home statement, the list is endless. The Eighth Amendment kills. Basically, this is an issue of consent and female bodily autonomy, as we said. Ronnie raised a crucial point earlier that if a woman becomes pregnant, the man who impregnated her has more autonomy than the woman carrying the child. He can either stay or leave. Without free, safe and legal abortion, women who find themselves pregnant unexpectedly don't have such agency. They elect either to carry a fetus that they may not want, face the prospect of taking dangerous and illegal action to terminate the pregnancy, or face jail time for doing or attempting to do so. If a man has a choice, as Rory said, why does a woman not? As Sarah's already asserted, this is also an inherently classist socio-economic issue, which leaves women without the means of flying to England in an extremely precarious situation. As a middle-class woman, I am lucky enough to possess the funds and privilege to be able to fly back to England and travel across the water if I ever needed to. Others in less secure social and economic situations, however, may not be able to do that, and may be forced to raise a child without possessing the necessary means to make sure that that child can have a good start in life. Neither mother nor child benefit in this situation. Access to abortion, however, would allow such women to have more control over where, when, and whether they wish to bring a child into the world. Family planning and reproductive control can only be a good thing, allowing parents to create a stable environment in which they can raise a family if they so wish. Finally, I also want to address some of the preposterous statements that surround the idea of abortion being used as a form of contraception. Not only are there numerous other forms of preventative contraception available to women, which, as one of the people said, kind of does do the same thing as abortion. But, yeah.
On that point,
but nobody takes a decision like getting an abortion lightly. Often, it isn't as simple as just taking like a magic pill that can suddenly and painlessly resolve everything. Abortions can often be physically destructive and have a really big impact on a woman's body, as well as Craig has already said, it does have a big effect on a person's mental health, and it can also be a significant economic burden. To paraphrase a blunder tweet that I saw the other day, no one's penis is that fantastic that a woman would consider having an abortion just to have sex with. Prevention, like Sarah said, is too costly for some, but the possible solution to unexpected pregnancy is even more expensive and sometimes far more dangerous. Ultimately, you know your own body and you know your own choices. You might never think that something like an unexpected pregnancy could happen to you, but many people find themselves in exactly that position. The proposition demands that you recognise abortion as a fundamental human rights issue, and we ask you, should we let draconic, outdated laws decide what happens to our bodies, or should we let the individuals themselves, who know their own minds, decide exactly what to do? Abortion is a reality in Ireland. We are not vessels. My body, my rights. It's that simple. I urge you, vote in favour of the motion and for full decriminalisation. Trust those who can carry children to know what's best for themselves. And to paraphrase the immortal words of Shania Twain, let's repeal, girls.
For another wonderful mid speech, can we please get another round of applause for Stacey? And finally, to close the case for the opposition and indeed end the speeches part of the debate, can we please give a warm welcome to Mr. Morgan Hickman?
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the House, as Chair has already pointed out, I'm going to be performing a whip speech. I'm going to be pointing out a couple of points of rebuttal I'd like to make to some of the arguments put forward by the proposition, and then I'm going to identify the two key points of clash in this debate before, if I have time, touching on any other relevant arguments of our bench. So, firstly, rebuttal. The first proposition in her speech stated that it is a negative that doctors still provide advice to pregnant women that have decided they would like an abortion, and that they shouldn't receive counselling on other options in that circumstance. In that sense, the proposition is opposed not to providing information, but opposed to informed consent. Ultimately, in a medical practice, in a medical sense, the individual should have all information, be that the impacts of their decision, but also the other options available. Secondly, the POP throughout have argued that they are inherently pro-choice. That is the key aspect. However, in certain points, they have asserted that many women don't have a choice, necessarily, but to have an abortion. And that is why the Eighth Amendment is discriminatory. And ultimately, in so saying, the opposition are not pro-choice, but in fact pro-abortion. And following this, as the second opposition pointed out, this isn't just a question of a medical procedure, this is the ending of a life, the ending of the potential of a human. But there was also one point brought up later in the debate, and has just been repeated by the closing speaker. Men have the choice to stay or leave. If men can choose, why can't women? And ultimately, the man can choose whether to stay or leave the relationship, not stay or leave with the child. The responsibility for the child through the legal systems of child maintenance, child support, is not optional. The father is still bound by the action. He doesn't get a choice if the woman decides not to have an abortion. And that's not the argument. Just finish this, Martin. And that is not the argument the opposition are putting here today, but rather that this is a false comparator. Yeah, I'll take one.
There's plenty of men. I grew up with plenty of girls my age and boys my age who didn't know who their fathers were. There's no in legislation that a man needs to stick around. Plenty of men don't stick around. It's nothing to do with their relationship. Some of them don't comprehend that they have a child in this world, and they just ignore it until it suits them to come back into their lives. The woman is always left.
Ultimately, that is outside the law. If a father abandons somebody without any notion, without any conception, that is not a question of legality or illegality. The law has a function to protect the mother, to protect the child, and to enforce a burden on the father. And that is correct. And that is the right way it should be. A father should not be given the opportunity to abscond and to neglect a child. Absolutely not. But in the alternative, that should be mirrored with the rights of the woman. I'd just like to point out two quick last points about that one. The first, that this is a medical issue, not a moral one. That's apparent phrase of the fourth proposition speaker. In Orson said, when discussing the right of life for an unborn child, we cannot reduce this to a purely medical issue.
On the point, it's a life-saving medical procedure for women and many people.
Yes, but it's also the termination of another life. It is a weighing up of rights. It is a choice. It is a moral choice. You are choosing between the moral weight of a mother and the moral weight of a potential or actual child. That is not a question that is purely medical. That is a question that engages strongly with morality. Finally, something that's been discussed a couple of times is the relationship between preventative and reactive contraception. And it's the case of this bench that in no sense can we compare a preventative measure to a reactive measure in terms of contraception. In the instant case, we're talking about the prevention of conception and then, subsequent to conception, the prevention of life. No, sorry, I just want to get on to a couple of points and I'll take some points further. So, 2 points of clash before the House today. And these are the 2 points the House has to decide upon in deciding how to vote. Firstly, the question is, whether the right of the living without birth, as translated by the first opposition, has a right to life. The first speaker on our left provided rational analysis as to why the unborn child should be granted rights from conception. The proposition has asserted from an international legal basis that international organisations support abortion. That is an appeal to authority and does not provide any reasonable argument, evidence or logic to refute the assertions made by the first speaker. The second point of clash is whether we should decriminalise this absolutely. And for if we don't, the illegal abortions will continue. And this simply cannot be accepted as logical. We cannot accept by turning an illegal act into a legal one, it is accepted. And following on from that, it's simply true that you can't consent to grievous bodily harm being committed to yourself. Any lawyers in the room or anyone that's had the misfortune of reading The Crown Against Brown will know that sadomasochism is actually illegal. But you're not allowed to consent to that. You're not allowed to consent to harm greater than battery or assault, so mere touching. You cannot therefore consent to that. That is illegal. Are we therefore arguing that we should be able to consent to any form of grievous bodily harm if we are ultimately building on individual autonomy? Final point I'd like to make, and I'm aware I'm running out of time, so unfortunately I can't think of any other points. We've had one point that refusal of cancer treatment or other medical treatment. This is currently permitted under the 8th Amendment by the wording of the law. The black letter law is acceptable. However, that is an issue to be dealt with in a case law setting. That is a question for the Supreme Court to decide, and it does not mean a repeal of the 8th Amendment. Fundamentally, this is a question about protecting and the balancing of the rights of the unborn child with the rights of the mother. The case of the opposition in this instance is that the 8th Amendment successfully balances those rights now, and therefore it should not be repealed. For that reason, I'm very happy to oppose.
Mr. Hickman, and indeed thank you to all of our wonderful speakers this evening. We are running short on time, and I know many of you all want to ask questions, so I would ask, and this is always a question that or a request that I pose that is often ignored, but if you could try your best to keep your questions brief, and speakers, if you can try and keep your answers brief as well, so that we might take as many as possible. So, are there any questions now for the proposition? I will yes.
Sorry, so I just wanted to point, first of all, Mr. Point about the Sabina case was brought up. The actual autopsy for her case showed that she didn't die because she was denied abortion. She died from septicemia, blood poisoning. Abortion isn't and never will be a cure for that. And her family have actually asked for people to stop using that case. And you also said so about the Sabina case, and we talk about free, safe, legal abortions. If so-called free, safe, legal, over in England, a woman called Alicia in 2012 died after having a so-called safe and legal abortion in a London Mary Stokes, and she was from the Republic of Ireland. And as well as that, you talk about women's rights. What about half of the babies in the room that are female? The head of BPAS is pushing for gender-selected abortions up to birth. As well, if you repeal the right to life, that is repealing, the right to life. There's no going back if you change the constitution. And it will push for abortion right up to birth. That's exactly what the 1967 Act is led for babies with disabilities. As well as that,
yes, sorry, that's quite a few questions.
Sorry, just like
very quickly.
Criminalisation. Maybe one woman was actually criminalised after having an illegal abortion and is behind bars today because she had an illegal abortion.
Thank you very much. Who from the proposition? Who from the proposition would like to take that, Ms. Brown?
If Sabina was allowed a safe abortion to legal country, she would not have died. And also, in relation to your saying, the pro-choice movement is meant to be using Sabina's name, the Love Both, that campaign, the Safe Date, whatever, isn't meant to be using Down syndrome all the time either. Actually, the Down syndrome association.
Sorry, no, come on, please.
Can I respond?
No, sorry again, everyone would like to, but we don't have time. Would anybody from the opposition care to respond to the show?
I don't want to get bogged down with using the Savita case, but Craig's informed me that she died of septic miscarriage. The member has said. In terms of free, safe, legal, just that's a phrase that was used by everyone, free, safe, legal, that's what you want. Well, let's take another scenario, bring up Down syndrome again, because 90% of fetuses identified with Down syndrome are being aborted. Trying to fund the House to do this, but let's look at Nazi Germany, who had institutionalised state euthanasia for disabled people. Okay? In Nazi Germany, it was free, it was safe, and it was legal for a disabled person to be euthanized.
Come on.
So, well, what we're saying here, when we legislate for this and codify for this, we're doing the same thing. Where do we draw the line? Removing the constitutional protection would allow this in law in the South to take place. We've seen Iceland as an example, where almost 100% of ladies with Down syndrome are aborted. This is unacceptable and offensive to the dignity of the human person.
Just a very quick point. Yes, I know back and forth would be nice, but the main two reasons why we don't allow it at this point is because one, short in time, everybody would like to ask questions. But also, if you ask a poor question, that is your own fault. If you receive a poor response, well then judge them for it in the vote and vote against them. And if you ask a question and get a good response, then we're all happy.
I need to get factual accuracy.
No, sorry, Mr. Doomer. I will take Mr. Better each other.
This is kind of a point for you, Morgan. So I know you were talking about moral stuff at the end of your speech. Part of the repeal, part of the 8th Amendment, it does say kind of bits about, like, say a mother was in a car crash and the baby died, and the car crash was her fault. She can be criminalised for that, for killing her own child. So I'm getting really emotional, I'm so sorry. But, like, how can you...
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hickman, to respond.
So, I do take the point, and I do think that this is actually something that is representative. And I think that when we talk about car accidents where fault is attributed, I think that's a very dangerous situation to go into. There's a lot of intricacy and a lot of complexity. However, there is a comparative piece of legislation that is on the self-induced miscarriages. Self-induced miscarriages, as being independent from abortion, is criminalised, and not just in Ireland. That is not an exclusive thing here, and that is not something under the 8th Amendment. Self-induced abortion, miscarriages, are criminalised in multiple jurisdictions, and ultimately, and that's how I would reflect on your question without going too much into the complexities of that particular situation.
Thank you, Mr. Hickman. Would anybody from the proposition care to respond? You don't have to, but the option is
Well, Lily, I just want to say that I actually didn't know that existed, and I'm so sorry that that was upset you. And I didn't really want to make a point on it because I don't know enough about it. But I just want to say that that's awful that that happens, and I don't think that's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sonner. Just before we move on, Mr. Bradley, if you wouldn't mind coming down and taking some photos down here. Are there any points now abstaining on the motion? Yes, this is a point that can be directed equally to both sides. Yes, if you direct it to one side, you can agree. I will refuse the question. Ms. Chadwick, it's your line.
So I'd like to start by saying I hate debates on abortion. I think they're really hard. It's something everyone has an opinion on, and it's something quite hard to clash on. But I do think, with it being such a topical issue, that it's a good thing that you're having today. I think what this debate has perfectly shown is that medical, social, psychological arguments on abortion are pretty sketchy. What it really comes down to is when you believe life begins. And at the end of the day, that's a religious, it's a moral opinion. And is it right for a state in this day and age to impose its own, and let's say it's really the church imposing its own ideas on everyone, and should that not be an individual's choice? And if we want it to be an individual's choice, should we not legalise it and let those people make that choice themselves?
Thank you very much, Ms. Chadwick. I'll ask the opposition to respond first. Mr. Glasgow.
Individual choice. Under the law, many of our individual choices are curtailed, and rightfully so. I'm sure a cannibal would wish for cannibalism to be legal so that he may eat his fellow man. I'm sure a kleptomaniac would wish that thievery was legal. When we're making these laws and making these rules, we have to draw the line somewhere, and that's a sort of, we do it through democracy, which is good. And the Supreme Law of the Republic of Ireland says, and it was democratically founded, that abortion in most circumstances is unacceptable, and I would submit that we should stick to this.
Thank you, Mr. Glasgow. Would anybody from the proposition care to respond?
Yeah, I think you've raised some good points that everyone does have their own opinions when it does come to abortion. And as well, I think I kind of mentioned in my speech that I think it is time that the Church took its arm out of the Irish Constitution, and that now the people of Ireland make their decision for themselves. You hear all around Ireland of priests that stand up and they tell their congregation to vote one way or another. It happened with the equal marriage referendum. It's probably going to happen again with this. And I think it is time for people to stand up and think for themselves and to not be misled from religious institutions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Person, would you mind informing before that we will try and be able to hear on the and ask the test. Now, are there any questions for the proposition? That's this side here. You, sir, are black.
I'm just saying name for minutes.
So we've heard recently that the church is trying to impose its belief on when life begins. We know from a scientific background, that at the moment of fertilization, that the fetus is whole, is living, and is a human life. That's a scientific fact. It's in every textbook in embryology, and it's recognized in many papers published in many reputable journals. So why is there this confusion around when life begins? It's whole, distinct, and fertilization. Thank you very much.
I think it's a personal thing, and we can dispute when life begins and when it does not, but it doesn't stop abortion from occurring. Do you know what I mean? Abortion's always going to happen. So disputing when life ends, again, we're going in circles all the time, having these conversations. Abortion will always be happening in Ireland. I think it's just time to make sense and make it legal.
Thank you very much, Ms. Graham. Mr. Perry, to respond to the opposition.
Firstly, I think we should stop comparing this to the same-sex marriage referendum. I think they're two completely different things.
Sorry, you must please let him respond.
Certain members of the proposition compared it in their speech. I just don't think it's right to compare it because they're two completely different issues. And the second thing is that the point that you made is very valid, that when does life begin? And life clearly begins in the womb. And it is unfair to think that a 12-week, that a 13-week baby or fetus has more rights than an 11-week fetus. That's completely unfair to think. And I actually have a question for the proposition.
Which they will not be able to respond to.
Well, I think they may consider in their response. I think that and it'll be well to inform the House. When do they believe legally that, aside from the 12 weeks, that an abortion should be granted? And if so, does that, at that date, they have less legal rights before that date granted?
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Probably can try and respond to that in your answer to the next question, but again, I've got to move on. For the opposition now, Mr.
Yeah, my question is just for the guy who was just speaking. Since you mentioned the 11 woman who were rushed to hospital, and since you claimed to love both, why didn't you mention Miss X, Miss Y, Anne Lovett, Miss A, Miss B, Miss C, Miss D, who have all died due to the woman?
Thank you very much, Miss. Would you mind stating your name for the minutes? Oh, you got it? Okay. Mr. Perry, have you done it?
On a point of clarification, why are you saying the 8th Amendment killed those people?
Sorry?
Why are you saying the 8th Amendment actually killed those people on the point of clarification?
They weren't able to access free safe and legal abortion.
Free safe and legal abortion. But as I said in my speech, by ensuring if we offer free, safe and legal abortion, that does not as I said about sex trafficking, that surely we could legislate for free, safe and legal sex trafficking. Surely we could. But we don't because it's illegal and it causes harm. And abortion does.
No, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Would anybody from the proposition like to respond? Again, you don't need to, but the option is there. No?
Completely agree with what Laura said. Absolutely. All of those cases should have been mentioned, but they weren't.
Thank you very much. I'll now take a point abstaining on the motion, and I would just inform the prop you'll be asked to respond first this time. Yes, right there.
So just like to point out that Ireland actually has a safer maternal mortality rate than any country you previously mentioned. So it's actually safer, both obviously mum and baby, to be pregnant in Ireland than elsewhere. Abortion does not save a mother's life. None of these cases are
I'm not really sure that's an abstaining point, unless that's not really directed equally to both sides. Yes, I'm sorry, I'll have to ask you to sit down and take another question because that was not abstaining on the motion. Mr. Pine.
So, second week in a row, we've had a perfectly gender-balanced debate. It's been all women on the proposition and all men on the opposition. Why do we think that is?
Thank you very much. Speak on the proposition. Eric, respond to that. Sonic, respond.
I think you raised a really valid point. I think, sadly, a lot of the time, a lot of men feel like they don't have a say, if they don't feel like but they feel like they can't consciously stand up and say that they're pro-choice because they say, even though they believe in themselves, that they're afraid to say because it is a woman's decision in their opinion. But also, I feel like just ourselves, because we are four very passionate women about this, we wanted to come up and stand and talk about it. And I think we would have liked to have men's opinions on this. Again, I would have liked to hear a woman's opinion on the other side. It just so happened to be that this is the way it always tends to be, especially in university-based politics and debates.
Thank you, Mr. Sonic. Who from the opposition will respond? Mr. Hickman.
Preliminary point, Shay and I from the Law Society, we were attributed to this side. We didn't actually have a choice on what side we were going to argue. Just putting that out. However, beyond that, I think ultimately the rhetoric used on the pro-choice side, and I'm not using that in a sense to demean the arguments made in any way, but the ultimate perspective is that a woman's opinion on this particular topic is more important. And I don't mean that as to demean the arguments to make them any less valid, but that is the kind of the sense the arguments kind of cluster around often. It is kind of pervasive in the rhetoric. Whether that is ultimately a good or a bad thing remains up for debate, and I don't think we have the time to get through that today. I think that possibly contributes, and I think that's very much what you made as well.
Thank you very much. I will take a final round of questions, so there'll be one for the proposition, one for the opposition, and one abstaining. And I will prefer people who haven't yet spoken at all this meeting. It seems how there are no hands up from that category. The proposition to this side here. Any questions to this side here? Okay, very good. I'll take you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd just like to say it was very, very interesting that we have this rhetoric that this isn't my body, my choice. When in fact, half of pregnancies you have a real child, so that child has a penis. So how is that part of the woman's body? It absolutely is not. That is, it's absolutely not. Please, I'd like you to explain that to me, how that is part of the woman's body. And also this idea of bodily autonomy, I think is very important. It's very important to recognise that my autonomy is limited and your autonomy is limited by the effects they have on other people.
Thank you very much, Miss. Who from the proposition would care to respond? Miss Gethin.
Yeah, it's my body and it's my choice, and it's the right to my body because the fetus literally cannot survive without me. Like the fetus is a parasite.
Please, miss, please, miss. No back and forth, please.
It cannot survive outside my body. It is a parasite, therefore that is my body.
No, I'm sorry. I appreciate it. If you may very much like that, Mr. Ward, but nevertheless, we must move on. Mr. Glasgow to respond to the opposition. please. Mr. Glasgow.
Highly inappropriate for the proposition to refer to a human life and a human soul as a parasite.
Order, please.
Yeah, just in terms of the choice issue, all human rights are derogated mostly, they're all qualified except the right against torture. Human rights, in essence, human rights law is a rights balancing exercise, and the right to life will always trump the other rights.
Thank you very much. I have been very pleased thus far with how respectful this debate has been. I would very much appreciate it if we could keep it that way for the last few minutes. At the end of the day, none of us have a final say on what's happening, so let's keep it civil, keep it polite, and let's just get through this. Are there any questions now from the opposition? I will take you, Miss.
I just want to say something that in Shay's speech, he equated abortion to strangling a baby when it comes out of the womb. I just think that's very traumatic for anyone in this room who's had an abortion, and I would just like an apology, and I think that's very fair.
Not really a question. What's your point of order?
Inappropriate.
Yeah, I would remind the House that at the end of the day, to have a debate, we need speakers on both sides. The people speaking are not necessarily speaking from their own beliefs. They're trying to form an argument. And so, yes, whilst both of their speeches contain may reflect their views, they do not necessarily. So I will ask for another point for the opposition. Yes, Ms. Dobbin.
I just noticed, like, in Shay's speech, he talked about...
Sensing a theme here.
He's already dead! He mentioned the idea that it was life and destroying life, but the idea is that if a woman has an intrauterine death, the baby dies inside or will definitely die immediately after birth. They are forced to carry that to term, and that is psychologically pretty damaging. And that's not a destruction of life at all, because it's not a life.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dobbin. It seems Dr. Miller would like to respond.
Sorry. What you've described as a miscarriage, it's not an abortion. If a baby dies and then you remove that fetus, that's called a miscarriage, and you do a deed, you do. It's a miscarriage. Look it up. Okay, it's not an abortion. Please, can we stop equating the two as the same thing? Completely different things.
Ms. Dobbin, would you like to offer a point of clarification?
It was more the idea that with the 8th Amendment they're being forced to carry it to term. They're not being given that, they aren't being given that treatment. They are being forced to carry it to term. It's more the response to that part.
Dr. Miller again.
Okay, so you're telling me that when a fetus dies at 26 weeks, that she then carries that fetus for the next 14 weeks. That's what happens, because I do not know of a single case where that has happened. I'm sorry, and when you stated in terms of the fatal fetal abnormality earlier, I again cannot find a single piece of legislation that supports what you said. I cannot. So this is again a Brexit debate type 2, where it's just a load of non-truths that are being said from both sides.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Would anybody from the proposition like to respond? Again, you do not have to be the opposite. Yes, again, you can talk between not me, so are they okay? Ms. Sonic to respond.
What I just wanted to say to everybody here is that this clarification between term miscarriage and term abortion, I can't remember that, sorry.
Great.
You did bring a very good point when you're saying that, but also the medically you can refer to a miscarriage as a spontaneous abortion as well, just for a point of clarification.
Thank you very much, Sonic. I will take the final point of this evening, an abstaining point that can be directed equally to both sides, and I will take it from Mr. Dobbin.
So there was a point made in, I'm sorry, Shay, which is that wherever we draw the line of when life begins is arbitrary. So what I'd like to ask to both sides is that given that that's the concept of it being an arbitrary line, to the proposition, I would ask that where you would draw that arbitrary line, and at what point do you believe that human life, as defined as a life beginning at conception, when you believe that a human life possesses rights, and to the opposition to say how it is they justify that those rights are possessed at conception, given the evidence, and how they would justify that appropriately.
I would argue, Mr. Dobbin, that was not an abstaining point, but rather 2 points on each side. That would balance them out. However, for the sake of time, I will allow it. So I will ask the opposition, I believe, to respond to this task.
Okay.
Dr. Miller?
Yeah, was it about condoms?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think the 2 points are quite related here, because there's again been a bit of, I don't know, non-science. Sperm is a haploid cell, an oocyte is a haploid cell, okay? A fetus is a diploid cell, okay? So, no, sperm doesn't have rights, okay? It doesn't. In a condom, in a condom, sperm, not a human, okay? It's a haploid cell. A fetus is a diploid cell. When it becomes a diploid cell, that's to me when life begins, because we are all diploid cells. We're not haploid cells. Okay, let's really just make a difference between Mr. Haploid.
And finally, who from the office of proposition would care to respond? Sorry, has been left you.
Can you just
Given that it's been said that wherever we draw the line for human life possessing rights is arbitrary, at what point do you believe that a human life possesses human rights?
Okay. Right. I feel, again, as we've all said, this is a very, very personal decision to make. But in terms of where I believe for myself, I'm not going to speak for all the girls on the team, I don't know what their stance is. I would say 22 weeks. Because around that time when the cortex is connected and they are then able to feel pain, that's my own personal belief.
I would like to very quickly say, it's a personal belief. Again, next one. As she said, does not necessarily affect the proposition. So that will, Mr. O'Neill, what?
It's a universal norm.
No, we're sorry. I'm afraid the time is 9:30. We must now conclude with a bit. Thank you very much to our speakers for their speeches. As there are so many non-members in the room this evening, I think it would be fair that we pass a motion allowing all those present to vote. Can I get a seconder for that? All those in favour of allowing all people present this evening to vote, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Against, say nay. Abstaining, say nay. The motion carries. So, this, and allow me to make this very clear, this is a vote on speaker ability. At the beginning, we had a vote on where you personally come down on this motion. The one side, as we know, won that overwhelmingly. So if that was the side that you support, then take solace in the fact that they won that vote. I reiterate, this is a vote on speaker ability. Please, vote for the side you believe spoke best this evening. Even if you disagree with them, vote for them because they spoke best. Please. So, the motion was this House would repeal the IT. If you believe that the proposition spoke best this evening, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Keep them up so we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, Mr. Secretary. All those who believe that the opposition spoke better this evening, please raise your hand and say nay. Nay. And keep them up so that we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, Mr. Secretary. 30. And all those who believe that both sides spoke equally well, or equally terribly, or wish to express no opinion on the matter whatsoever, please raise your hand and say it loud, say it proud, say meh! Keep them up so that we may count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Thank you very much. Secretary, tally that up. We will be adjourning to the Woodworkers Bar right next to the library. If you'd like to join us and continue the debate there, feel free. Mr. Secretary, could you please read back the vote?
That was 27 votes for the proposition, 30 votes for opposition, and 14 abstentions.
There we go. The opposition spoke better. The opposition spoke better. Thank you very much. Order, just a moment.
Can I quickly just say from my abstaining point, which I will abandon, I've been involved in many debates here, and I think for the severity of debate, the humility and the genuineness and the character and compassion involved in both sides was extraordinary, and I'd like to thank all of you for that.
For representing the Law Society, I'd like to thank Miss Johnny Graham, Miss Sarah, and Miss Megan Getman for representing Amnesty, and I'd like to thank Mr. Jude Perry, just a quick note, and Miss AHD, critically good sports for showing up. So thank you again.